Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Tracy's Florida Homestead and Spooky Story Spectacular. We have with us today my son James and my niece Raven, who is sitting over here on the side, enjoying the summer with us. I'm glad to have her here. And so it's been a long week, so we're kind of late one day on another story. So we wanted to hurry up and get this out for you. And what you hear in the background is my blind dog Cuba wanting to run around and hit the walls. Okay. Look at it as a spooky ghost, okay? Spooky ghost sounds in the wall. So tonight we bring you from Spooky, Florida, Flight 401, which comes from a story in 1992 about a plane crash in the Everglades. So without further ado, Flight 401, the Everglades, Florida. We don't talk about Flight 401 much anymore. It was a tragedy, and our company was devastated by the loss of life that resulted from the equipment malfunction on that fateful December night in 1972. The story begins a few months back when one of our flight attendants started having dreams about a plane crash. It was repeated dreams, along with seeing flashes of Christmas trees and holly wreaths. She heard moans and screams and saw passengers fading away into dark waters. She became convinced that one of the company's planes would crash around Christmas, and she predicted it would take place on a flight going to Miami. Word spread among her friends within the company. Part of my responsibility at the time included company morale. So I did my best to squash the rumors of any imminent disaster, but I was uneasy all the same and stayed alert during the holiday season, hoping the woman's predictions would be proven wrong. When Christmas Day passed without incident, I was relieved. Too soon, as it turned out. The day of the crash, the last-minute roster change scheduled the psychic dreamer aboard Flight 401 for Miami. But she decided not to work that day, so it was not aboard the plane when the equipment malfunctioned. The two pilots, both long-term pros, reported serious problems with the landing gear lights and the nose gear. Instructed by the tower to decrease their altitude and attempt a landing, the pilot brought the plane down to the requested altitude of 2,000 feet and circled for the final approach. Unknown to the flight crew, all the plane's instruments had already failed. They were flying blind. Instead of an altitude of 2,000 feet, they were descending closer and closer to the waters of the Everglades. With no way of ascertaining whether the plane was level, as the plane broke into several pieces. Fleeing passengers and crew like broken dolls over the Everglades. Rescue crews rushed into the area and pulled many of the injured from the dark waters of the wreckage. But in the end, the death toll stood at 101. It was devastating loss that demoralized our company. The psychic flight attendant was hit particularly hard, as she was close friends with Captain Bob Loft and Don Repo, the pilot and the second officer who were killed. Even her dreams hadn't been enough to save them. Time moves on, of course. The survivors returned to their homes and their jobs. The dead were mourned and buried. The salvage crew pulled the remains of the plane from the Everglades, and the spare parts were recycled for use in other planes. Things gradually got back to normal for our airline. Then a few months after the accident, a friend who was a vice president with our company phoned me from Florida. I was surprised to get the call, since he was there on vacation, but my surprise gave way to shock when I heard what he had to say. He had been flying first class, one of the aspects of being on the airline VP, and a pilot had taken the seat beside him. The VP thought he looked familiar, but he couldn't place him right away. He tried to strike up a conversation, but the pilot obviously didn't feel like talking. The pilot was pale and looked sad. The VP studied his face and felt a chill run over his skin as he suddenly recognized the man. It was Captain Bob Loft, who had died the night Flight 401 crashed into the Everglades. The eyes of the two men met briefly, and then the pilot vanished. Hours after it took place, my friend was still shaken by the incident, but I couldn't blame him. I felt shaky myself. A ghost had appeared on one of our planes. It was hard to believe. But this was only the beginning. Employees started seeing Captain Loft aboard other planes, and one crew reported recovering a safety lecture from a dead pilot. I hope they listened. Don Repo also began making appearances sitting next to passengers and then vanishing into thin air. He too had the safety of our airline in mind and warned 2 flight attendants and an engineer that one of our planes would shortly have trouble with fire. We believe in ghosts too. He was right. On the return flight, the engine burst into flames in midair and had to be extinguished. Well, this obviously wouldn't do. We couldn't have ghosts apparently willy-nilly on our planes. And I was asked to look into the matter. After investigating each of the alleged incidents, I began seeing a pattern. Many of the incidences took place on a 1 or a 1011, the same type of plane that went down in the Everglades during Flight 401, but not all of them. It wasn't until I started tracking the spare parts recycled from Flight 401. Then it hit me. Every ghostly appearance took place on a plane that was using one or more of the spare parts from the plane L1011 jumbo that had gone down in the Everglades. At least now I knew the reason for the hauntings. And the solution was obvious. Remove the spare parts. I authorized the work to be done at once. That did the trick. The ghost disappeared from our airlines, and slowly the rumors died away. Though the last reported sighting continued to linger in my mind, a flight captain on one of our TN Starjets saw the ghost of Don Repo on his flight. Reportedly, the ghost told him that there would never be another crash on a tri-star jet. The ghost would not let it happen. At the time, I was more pleased than not to hear those words, but things could have more than one meaning. As I realized when our company was forced to close its doors a few years later. No, we didn't have any more crashes on our tri-star jets because we didn't have a company of tri-star jets. It was ironic. The last time I was in Miami, I had an airboat captain take me out to the place where Flight 401 went down. As a natural, after a tragedy, all sorts of rumors had sprung up about this spot. People reported hearing screams and ghostly moans, seeing white faces beneath dark waters of the Everglades. You know, things of that ilk. All I saw that fine sunny day were egrets and blue herons. All I heard was the wind. It was a moment of great peace for me. I felt a burden I hadn't known was shouldering fall far from me. No matter what anyone else heard or saw in the future, my time among the phantoms of Flight 401 was complete, and I dared to hope that the phantoms would be at peace too. It was time to move on. Well, we thank you for sticking around and listening to Flight 401, the Everglades, from spooky Florida. We hope you come back to see us. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, follow. Check us out on Facebook under Tracy's Florida Homestead or the Birds and the Bees Apiary. We'd love to see you come back. Have a nice 4th of July, everybody.